welcome to the Soda Fiend. Today we're doing something of a baseline show. I wanted to kind of get this out of the way before I started diving into other cola beverages. Today we are talking about a cola. And baseline with cola is kind of a tricky subject because I venture to suspect that nearly anyone on this planet who has exposure to media in this century or the latter half of the previous one has probably a pretty good idea of what one might expect one of the two dominant answers to be. And actually, one of the reasons that comments are at least currently disabled on these videos is that I really don't want people getting into fights about that. For my money, the Soda Fiend thinks that cola is a flavor, and it does have a range. So as far as I'm concerned, both of the big two fall pretty neatly within that range for me. I was, of course, raised on them like any late 20th century American who is a survivor of the cola wars. Now, I have mentioned the challenge in the past. One thing I really ought to kind of own up here is that this show as a whole is essentially an extended, late-coming, post-traumatic stress reaction to injuries suffered during the Cola Wars. A strange man in a box inside of a box who didn't seem to really be manned came to my mind and stuttered strange incantations at me, and I was forever changed into something that caught the wave, taught the world to sing, and was the voice of a new generation. So you might think that one of those two would be my baseline, my current favorite. Such is not the case, but they do fall in my range. For an example of something that falls a little bit outside my range, you might look at Royal Crown, which we will get to separately on another day. But today we're going to talk about what currently is what I think of as the top dog cola in the Soda Fiend's life. And it's not one of the brands. It's not really a brand at all. In fact, the Soda Fiend's favorite cola at the tender age of his current age, which he has already kind of revealed a little bit, is a store brand. Because I grew up sampling the occasional store brand in the town of Memphis, Tennessee, where we had the Kroger chain, which has its Big K, which is essentially a generic rebrand, as you might expect, from a store brand. And most of our other grocery stores would stock Shasta or Fanta, perhaps Faygo as their low-cost brand. But there was Big K, and I got exposed to like maybe some Walmart brands or something like that. But it wasn't until adulthood that I moved to Texas and started doing my grocery shopping at H-E-B. Now, H-E-B has a line of sodas about which they are fairly serious. They have their cola, they have their root beer, and they have their Dr. Pepper clone, which is called Dr. B. And those are all offered in glass bottles with cane sugar. They also have a fairly high quality line under the original brand that's packaged similarly to the bottles, but it's in cans, and that has like a big red clone and a lemon lime and an orange and maybe a grape and some other stuff, and then they have some seasonal varieties as well. And then they have another line, which is still branded as H-E-B, but is an HFCS version of the soda, and that's packaged in like different packs. And then they have another cheaper brand called Hill Country Fare, which is more or less, I should really do a real sample on it, but my suspicion is that it's equivalent to what you would get at a store brand at another chain like Big K, for instance, at Kroger. And furthermore, then they have their Jarritos clone line, which is called Saborsazos, and that actually has cane sugar in it. It's dirt cheap, and so far from what I've had, it's pretty damn good. So today we are looking at and taking a little sample of H-E-B Original Cola. Now, the thing that truly, I suppose I'm jumping to conclusions on this, but because this is a cane sugar blended cola, and it's a clone essentially of Coke and Pepsi and RC, kind of as a unit, I guess. What this means is that the recipe is unaltered since its inception, which is really not true of any of those big three brands. They have their separate lines, like Throwback and whatnot, that attempt to restore those, but they're, essentially acknowledging that the brand has changed. This one, I don't think has. I think we're looking at pretty much the same recipe as it always was. They do use HFCS in the canned, lower cost version of original cola, which I guess means that they're still using the same flavor element. And I expect the Hill Country Fair soda is just a rebranded generic like your typical. But this seems to be produced, and I do say seems, I don't know this for sure, it does seem to be produced specifically for the chain. And I moved to Texas some years ago and was exposed to this and was like, I have no use for the big two anymore. This exceeded their quality to such a degree that I did not anticipate going back. Now, we're going to take a taste. Unlike most of the bottles I deal with here, this one requires an opener. In that brief flash there, I'm sure you can see that this label is none too ostentatious. It's very simple. It's actually screen printed, I guess, onto the bottle and not a printed label at all. HEB Original Cola comes in at a pretty hefty 45 grams of sugar per 12-ounce bottle, which I expect is attributable to the age of its recipe. So, I'm going to take a swig and then a little pour. Now, this is a strong cola. It's not really a guzzler's cola. Where'd the cap go? AWOL. The cap is unassuming. Just has the store name and filled with some details. It's a bottle cap. So, take a little sip. I've already got this all over my palate, and it is just... it's hard to describe this other than that it's sweet and cola-y, but not overwhelmingly sweet. And it's pretty thick. It's just solid. It's what you expect from an American cola beverage. It's not going to be something that's like, oh, we have more cola nut than the other cola, or anything like that. It really is just trying to get the job done, but it's doing it in fairly spectacular fashion, is the deal. This is not a Picasso soda. It is a Norman Rockwell soda, as many, of course, hope to be. That's probably a poorly chosen image. What I mean is skilled illustrator. I'm not talking about the Americana angle, okay? It's just a serious cola. Sweet and tasty. And it has the vanilla you want and a little bit of kick to it. Not much. We'll put a little ice in here. This is a soda that can support a fair amount of ice for a reasonable length of time, which is something we haven't encountered much of here on the Soda Fiend as of yet. Big reaction with ice, as with all colas. Or at least all the ones I've had. Yep, it's good. It's good with ice. It's good without ice. It's a good all-purpose cola. You could mix drinks with this. It's strong enough to work with. You're not going to lose it in the mix. Do a Cuba Libre with that. You're still going to taste plenty of cola. And I say that even as someone who doesn't drink. This stuff is going to shine through. It's just strong. It's a solid cola, and I like the idea of having a store brand that outdoes the majors. That kind of does my heart good in some ways, but it's not only for that reason that I prefer it. This is legitimately, for the Soda Fiend's purposes, better soda than the big two produce. Now, I'm not speaking for the HFCS version of this. I have not had that. The canned version with the swankier packaging does still have cane sugar in it, I think. You never know for sure if the glass is making a difference. Probably not that much once you pour it out. Just actually drinking from glass is usually a better experience, whether it's a bottle or a glass, than an aluminum can is. But I'm going to conclude this review by pouring out the rest of this, and I'm going to go take a seat and enjoy the rest of this fine soda. All right, as always, take care of your teeth, especially if you're throwing mean stuff at them. And yeah, thank you very much.